You're solving equations, the goal is to find the value for x, or the value for the unknown. So you need to again think about how when you modeled the equations that you also were trying to find x, and you were trying to isolate x on one side of the equation. So I'm going to use some simple examples in this video so that you know the process involved and the steps that you need to follow. So when the questions get more difficult, it will be easier to solve them. So this is a one-step problem. X plus 3 equals 10. Now our goal is to have x on one side of the equation and the units or the number on the other side, so we know the value of x. So again, we need to do something about the 3 here. We need to eliminate that somehow. So the way we do it, just like with the tiles, is we add a negative 3 to that side. Now to balance the equation, we need to do exactly the same to the other. Notice how I write down the whole equation one more time. Now I can simplify the equation by having our x, and I know that plus 3 minus 3 is going to be 0, so I'm not even going to write that down. And 10 minus 3 is going to be 7. So our value for x is 7. So our next step is to verify that. So all we do is take our 7 and put it where the x was in our equation. And we can see that 10 equals 10. So in fact, that's the correct answer. So this is another one-step equation because there's only one operation involved in this equation. So you can see that when we have x divided by 4 equals 3, we need to somehow get rid of this division. We have x divided into 4, so in order to get x by itself, we need to do the opposite of dividing, which is multiplying. So I'm just going to do a little side demonstration here. So if we have x divided by 4, and we multiply that by 4, we end up with 4x divided by 4, which is the same as 4 over 4 times x, which is the same as 1x, which is the same as x. So you can see that by doing the opposite, these actually cancel each other out, and we're just left with x. So going back to our equation, we have x divided by 4. So we're going to multiply this side by 4, and I use the little dot to signify multiplying so we don't confuse it with the variable x. Now I have to multiply the other side by 4. Okay, so I'm left on this side of the equation just with x. On this side of the equation, I'm left with 12, so that's our solution. But let's put it back into our equation to verify it. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3. 3 equals 3, so that is a correct solution. So notice every time that I do a new step, I write down the whole equation again. I don't make one great big long equation, but I write down the equation and I write down both sides of the equation every time, both sides of the equation. So we're going to go on to this one, which is a two-step problem. 5x plus 1 equals 16. The first thing we're going to do is try to get rid of the unit tiles, or the units, on one side of the equation. So we're going to start by dealing with this plus 1. So you remember, if we've got adding here, we have to subtract something to start to isolate our x. So I'm going to subtract 1 to get rid of that 1. But because I did it on that side, I'm going to do it on the other side too to keep my equation balanced. So each time I write down both sides of the equation. So now to simplify, I've got plus 1 minus 1, so that's 0. So I'm just going to leave that out. I could add 0, but it's not going to matter. I'm left with 5x equals 16 minus 1 is 15. Now again, I've got to isolate x, so because this is multiplying 5 times x, now I'm going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide each side by 5 to isolate x. So on this side of the equation now, these will cancel each other out. Multiply by 5, divide by 5, you're left with 1x. And on this side of the equation, 15 divided by 5 is 3. So let's go plug that back into our equation. 5 times 3 plus 1 equals 16. 15 plus 1 equals 16. 16 equals 16, and that is a correct solution. One more two-step equation. Here I have x divided by 4 minus 3. So the first thing I deal with is this. Because it's minus 3, I'm going to do the opposite, which is add 3. So I do that to both sides of the equation. This cancels each other out. I'm left with x divided by 4 equals 12. Now I've got a dividing, so the opposite of dividing is multiplying, so I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 4. Now these cancel each other out, so I'm left with x. So I'm going to go up here. Normally I would keep going down on my page. X equals 12 times 4 is 48. So that's my solution. Let's go back and plug it into the original equation. 48 divided by 4 minus 3 equals 9. 48 divided by 4 is 12 minus 3 equals 9. 9 equals 9, so that is correct.